Fermentation might appear to be a sophisticated term better suited for a science laboratory, but in truth, it's merely an enjoyable method for preserving vegetables and enhancing their taste. Imagine this. You find yourself in a snug Amish kitchen, enveloped by the aroma of fresh produce. A large bowl of cabbage sits ready to be transformed into sauerkraut, and the anticipation is tangible. I recall my initial foray into fermentation. I envisioned crafting a culinary masterpiece, but the result was more akin to a science fair experiment gone awry. Nevertheless, the wonder of fermentation lies in its ability, when executed correctly, not only to conserve food, but also to convert it into something both delicious and wholesome. So, what precisely occurs during fermentation? It's an intriguing process driven by beneficial bacteria, particularly lactic acid bacteria, which consume the sugars present in vegetables. As they metabolize these sugars, they generate lactic acid, imparting fermented foods with their characteristic tang. It's like hosting a celebration in a jar where the bacteria are the main attraction. And consider this, while they're celebrating, they are also producing probiotics, which act like miniature champions for your digestive system, aiding in food digestion and bolstering your immune system. Just envision them as tiny cheerleaders for your stomach, waving their pom-poms each time you crunch on a crisp pickle. Now, here is where things become particularly interesting. Were you aware that some of the most ancient records of fermentation trace back thousands of years? Early civilizations in China, Egypt, and Mesopotamia had already embraced fermentation. They understood that this straightforward technique could transform ordinary vegetables into flavorful delicacies with a longer shelf life than fresh produce. It's somewhat like genuine magic, turning something commonplace into something exceptional without a spellbook. Just a bit of salt and patience. Fermentation is not merely about tossing some vegetables into a jar and hoping for a favorable outcome. It's a waiting game. The Amish have perfected the discipline of patience, understanding precisely when their vegetables achieve optimal fermentation. At times, it's like anticipating the release of a new season of your favorite television show. It seems to take an eternity, but when you finally get to savor that tangy delight, it's worth every moment of anticipation. In my own experience, the essential part is to inspect them regularly, but not so frequently that you begin conversing with your vegetables as if they were old acquaintances. When it pertains to fermentation, not all vegetables are suitable, and the Amish possess a talent for selecting just the right kinds. Consider this. Have you ever attempted to ferment something like lettuce? Let's just say that limp greens don't exactly evoke a sense of tangy pleasure. The Amish typically opt for robust, flavorful vegetables that can endure the passage of time, such as cabbage, carrots, and cucumbers. Each of these selections possesses its own unique appeal, contributing different tastes and textures to the final product. Cabbage, for example, becomes sauerkraut, a tangy, crunchy treat that's ideal for topping a bratwurst or incorporating into a casserole. And who could turn down pickled carrots that introduce a splash of color and a burst of flavor to salads or sandwiches? The freshness of the vegetables is paramount. Amish gardens are frequently teeming with homegrown produce, and you can discern the difference in taste. They know the key is to gather their vegetables at their peak ripeness. I once endeavored to ferment some rather sorry-looking vegetables from the rear of my refrigerator, believing myself to be a fermentation aficionado. Spoiler alert, they transformed into a science experiment that even I was unwilling to sample. So, if you intend to venture into fermentation, ensure you procure the freshest produce available. It's like selecting the finest ingredients for your preferred recipe. It makes a world of difference. There is also something profoundly gratifying about personally selecting your vegetables from a garden. It fosters a small connection to the earth and cultivates a deeper appreciation for what you are about to prepare. Envision the sun illuminating ripe cucumbers, the earthy scent of fresh carrots just extracted from the soil. It's almost like a miniature expedition, and it prepares the ground for a delightful fermentation endeavor. You might even discover yourself feeling somewhat like a farmer, taking pride in your vegetable choices. I mean, who doesn't appreciate a little garden allure in their life? And speaking of cucumbers, you might ponder why the tomato turned red. Well, it saw the salad dressing. Okay, that's an old jest, but it invariably elicits a chuckle. But in all seriousness, cucumbers are the celebrities of pickling and are frequently fermented into crunchy pickles that complement sandwiches perfectly or serve as a delightful snack on their own. It's remarkable how something so uncomplicated can become so adaptable through fermentation. Salting is where the enchantment truly commences in the fermentation process. It's not merely about a light sprinkle of salt here and there. It's a vital step that guarantees those crisp vegetables transform into something delectable. You could assert that salt acts like the doorman at a club. Only the desirable bacteria are permitted to join the festivities. The Amish employ salt not just to augment the flavor, but also to cultivate an environment that encourages beneficial bacteria, thereby warding off the detrimental ones. Who would have thought seasoning could possess such potency? When you introduce salt to your vegetables, it functions to extract moisture. This is significant because that moisture, in conjunction with the salt, forms a brine that aids in preserving the vegetables. As the salt draws out the water, it lowers the pH level of the mixture. Did you know that when salt reduces the pH, it can render your fermented vegetables both safer and more flavorful? That's correct. It's like bestowing upon your vegetables a protective shield, prepared to repel any unwelcome intruders. You could almost visualize the vegetables donning miniature capes, soaring around your pantry on a mission to remain fresh and fabulous. Now, the procedure isn't simply a sprinkle and proceed affair. The Amish frequently strive for a particular salt proportion, typically around 2 to 3% of the vegetable's total weight. So, if you're feeling meticulous and opt to weigh your vegetables, which I highly suggest for a more accurate result, that implies if you possess a pound of cabbage, you would utilize approximately 1 to 2 teaspoons of salt. It might not seem like a substantial amount, but it delivers a significant impact. The genuine magic unfolds as the salted vegetables start to ferment. They begin to soften and metamorphose, releasing their inherent sugars. You can almost sense the anticipation escalating. It's akin to observing a caterpillar transform into a butterfly, only this one concludes its journey in a jar instead of a garden. As time progresses, the vegetables will acquire that unmistakable tangy flavor that we all cherish. Speaking of flavor, I learned this lesson the difficult way during my initial attempt at fermentation. I mused, why not just add a tad more salt for taste? Let's just say my batch ended up tasting more like a salt block than anything palatable. My friends still jest about the salted catastrophe that spoiled a perfectly fine batch of cucumbers. Who knew that an excess of a good thing could prove counterproductive? The fermentation crock. This is where your salted vegetables proceed to relax and convert into something genuinely tasty. The Amish have utilized these customary containers for generations, and allow me to tell you, they have refined it into a science, or perhaps I should say, a science of flavor. These crocks are frequently fashioned from clay and engineered with a distinctive water-sealed lid. This design is ingenious. The water-filled channel encircling the lid establishes a barricade that obstructs air entry while permitting the gases generated during fermentation to vent. It's like affording your vegetables a comfortable little spa getaway where they can unwind and effervesce without any unwelcome visitors disrupting their party. Just envision your vegetables reclining by a pool, sipping on their own brine. I recall my first endeavor at fermenting vegetables. I presumed I could be inventive and employ an old glass jar instead of a conventional crock. Let's just say that jar had different intentions. One morning, I awoke to a kitchen that reeked as if a pickle factory had detonated. It was somewhat like a science experiment gone awry, with vegetables spilling out everywhere. I swiftly comprehended that I was not merely striving for tangy goodness, but also attempting to avert a complete kitchen calamity. Subsequent to that, I made it a priority to procure a quality fermentation crock, one that pledged not to erupt in a fit of temper in the dead of night. When selecting a crock, dimensions are important. The Amish frequently choose crocks capable of holding several quarts of vegetables, ideal for their family get-togethers. This way, they can prepare substantial batches that will sustain them through the colder months. Furthermore, it's an excellent method to utilize an abundant garden harvest. A large crock translates to a generous amount of delicious ferment, which in turn means more joyful family meals. Now, if you don't possess a sophisticated fermentation crock readily available, don't fret. You can still ferment using jars, provided they are wide-mouthed and can withstand the pressure of the gases. Some individuals even get resourceful and use food-safe plastic buckets. Just exercise caution, as you wouldn't want an unexpected pop when you're unprepared for it. As your vegetables steep in their salty brine inside the crock, they will commence fermenting. You'll observe bubbling and fizzing. This is the desirable activity. Those bubbles are indicators that the beneficial bacteria are diligently at work, consuming the sugars and generating delectable acids. You can almost perceive them encouraging one another. Let's make these veggies fabulous. So, as you put your fermentation crock to use, remember to situate it in a cool, dark location, shielded from direct sunlight. This will contribute to ensuring a consistent fermentation process. The Amish understand that patience is essential, but who doesn't relish the anticipation of a new culinary undertaking? When fermenting, the Amish understand that maintaining the vegetables submerged beneath the brine is critical. You don't want any vegetables performing a salsa dance on the surface, exposed to air and all the unpleasant mold it can introduce. The secret is weights. The Amish utilize various items to press down their vegetables, from clean stones to specially crafted glass weights. You can be certain they possess a collection of perfectly suited stones in their yards, all carefully chosen for their fermentation endeavors. I once tried to be resourceful and imagined that I could use an old brick from my garden. That brick was a complete prima donna. It floated as if it were on a leisurely river, disregarding all my efforts to keep it submerged. Meanwhile, my sauerkraut was likely pondering why it was on an unscheduled floating holiday. Imagine searching through the yard for the ideal weight. I located one rock that appeared perfect until I discovered it was the residence of an ant colony. I can only picture them exclaiming, "Hey, where are you taking our condominium?" It's all lighthearted amusement until you have a small ant procession in your fermentation jar. The crucial aspect here is discovering something that is clean, safe, and sufficiently heavy to keep your vegetables immersed. When the vegetables are entirely submerged, they are at liberty to ferment without the concern of mold crashing the party. The Amish are experts at this, often employing rocks or weights that fit snugly in the crocks, permitting the brine to completely envelop their vegetables. It's like providing the vegetables with their own comfortable blanket of salty goodness. And let's not overlook the mathematics involved. When you apply the correct weight, you ensure the brine keeps those vegetables down and allows them to absorb the flavors. This technique also assists in creating an ideal anaerobic environment, which is sophisticated terminology for without oxygen. In this setting, those beneficial bacteria can perform their function and render your vegetables tangy and scrumptious. So, as you prepare to submerge your vegetables, just keep in mind, whether you're utilizing a substantial rock or an elegant glass weight, ensure those vegetables remain underwater. Your taste buds will express their gratitude later when they experience a bite of that perfectly fermented delight. Once your vegetables are all submerged and weighted down, the true trial of patience commences, awaiting the fermentation magic to unfold. This is where the Amish genuinely excel, knowing precisely how long their vegetables require to ferment to achieve that ideal tangy flavor. It's akin to waiting for a delectably baked pie to cool before indulging, challenging, but ultimately rewarding. The duration for fermentation can differ significantly based on the temperature, type of vegetable, and individual preference. For instance, sauerkraut can take anywhere from 1 week to a month to attain its peak flavor. You'll want to remain watchful during this interval, checking on your vegetables and utilizing your sense of smell as your guide. It's all about equilibrium. Too little time and you might end up with crunchy, insipid bites. Too much time and you could have an unexpected batch of sour surprises that might make even the most daring taste buds recoil. I recollect an instance when I became somewhat overly enthusiastic and believed I could accelerate the process by positioning my fermentation jar in a sunny spot on my windowsill. Little did I realize that was a formula for catastrophe. I entered a week later to find a jar that resembled a science experiment gone awry more than a culinary creation. The aroma? Let's just say, it served as a potent reminder to honor the fermentation timeline. It's a journey, not a sprint, my friends. The Amish possess an innate ability for discerning when their creations are ready. They will frequently taste a sample to assess the flavor, depending on their experienced intuition. It's like knowing when to remove cookies from the oven. Nobody desires burnt offerings, unless you're attempting to impress the neighbors with your charred culinary prowess. The correct balance of sourness will have you keenly looking forward to the crunch of those perfectly fermented vegetables in your subsequent meal. During this waiting period, you might also want to remain vigilant for any unwelcome visitors. Yes, I am referring to mold. If you observe any bothersome fuzz on the surface, do not be alarmed. Simply remove it, and your ferment remains perfectly fine. The key is to guarantee the vegetables stay submerged. Otherwise, they will host a moldy celebration right on top. It's like having a friend who brings their own uninvited and not particularly welcome snacks to the potluck. Once you've achieved the ideal point and your fermented vegetables are prepared, you'll be delightfully surprised at how fulfilling this process is. The vibrant, tangy flavors will dance on your taste buds, making it all worthwhile. Furthermore, this patience yields dividends when you realize you've crafted something wholesome and nourishing that can be savored throughout the entire year. Now that you've perfected the skill of fermentation and possess jars brimming with delightful, tangy treasures, it's time to discuss how the Amish preserve these goodies to guarantee they remain fresh and delicious throughout the winter. Envision this. You've just dedicated hours to crafting your ideal batch of sauerkraut, and now you desire for it to endure longer than a carton of milk left out on a scorching summer day. Appropriate storage is essential. The Amish employ a straightforward yet efficient method for storing their fermented vegetables. They frequently place them in cool, dark locations such as root cellars or basements, which are optimal for sustaining a consistent temperature. This is comparable to locating the prime spot in your residence for concealing snacks from the children, out of sight and out of mind. Keeping your fermented creations shielded from light and heat not only conserves their vivid colors, but also prolongs their shelf life, enabling you to relish those flavors long after the garden has entered dormancy. It's noteworthy that properly stored fermented vegetables can endure for up to a year or even longer. That's correct, 1 year of crispness and zest, prepared to enliven any meal, rendering it a superb way to ensure you possess nutritious choices even during the chilliest months. This technique is like retrieving your favorite sweater precisely when you require it most. Comforting and familiar, even if it hasn't been exposed to daylight in a while. During my own attempts at fermenting, I learned the hard way that not all storage methods are equally effective. I once believed it would be an excellent idea to store my fermented carrots in a sunny kitchen cabinet. Let's just say that after a week, I opened that cabinet to discover a pungent aroma suggesting my fresh vegetables had taken a turn for the worse. The lesson? Avoid the sun as if it were your ex making an unannounced appearance at a family gathering. Once you've located the ideal storage spot, don't neglect your jars. It's advisable to keep them securely sealed to preserve that delectable tangy goodness and thwart any unwelcome intruders from crashing the party. Conceive of it as providing your veggies with a snug little covering, cozy, warm, and shielded from the external environment. And let's not disregard the significance of labeling. I once confused my jars and inadvertently added pickled beets to my chili instead of my cherished fermented carrots. The outcome was memorable, though not in a positive manner. Labeling assists you in keeping inventory of your fermented bounty, ensuring you're always aware of what awaits you in the pantry. Now that your fermented vegetables are securely put away, let's delve into how to feature them prominently in your meals. The Amish possess a talent for integrating these tangy treats into everyday dishes, transforming something uncomplicated into something genuinely delightful. Consider your fermented vegetables as the clandestine ingredient capable of elevating a meal from mundane to extraordinary, much like discovering a concealed reserve of chocolate when you believed your candy provisions were dwindling. One traditional method to utilize sauerkraut is to add it to a hot dog or bratwurst. Believe me, there's something enchanting about that crunchy, sour bite contrasting with the succulent sausage. You can almost hear the flavor symphony playing a melody of "This is what summer cookouts were designed for." And if you're feeling bold, try incorporating a spoonful of sauerkraut into your grilled cheese sandwich. That additional tanginess is like an unexpected celebration for your taste buds. But it doesn't conclude with meat. Fermented vegetables can invigorate salads in ways you might not imagine. A handful of pickles or a dollop of kimchi can convert a routine salad into a zesty culinary creation. I once prepared a salad for a get-together, enthusiastically added my homemade pickled carrots, and proclaimed it gourmet. Let's just say the following day, my friends reminded me of the great carrot incident, when a bit too much of the pickling brine found its way into the bowl. It became an inside joke, but at least we shared a good laugh. Fermented vegetables can also excel in stir-fries. Imagine sautéing some fresh vegetables in a pan and then introducing a few spoonfuls of kimchi right at the conclusion. It adds a zest that will make your meal resonate. I had a friend who attempted this and inadvertently added an entire jar of kimchi to the pan. The result was a culinary escapade she dubbed Korean-style stir-fry gone rogue. And while it was somewhat spicy, it was still tasty enough that we didn't want to cease eating. Don't overlook breakfast either. Incorporating sauerkraut into scrambled eggs or an omelet can lend your morning meal a delightful zing. It's not every day you can assert that your breakfast is both nutritious and bursting with flavor. I recall one particularly ambitious Sunday morning when I resolved to mix leftover fermented cabbage into my eggs. Let's just say it was a success, despite my daughter's initial reservations. Now, she even requests sauerkraut eggs when we're enjoying brunch. Fermentation is experiencing quite a resurgence in today's culinary landscape. Move aside conventional methods. Fashionable foods like kimchi, kombucha, and even fermented hot sauce are capturing the limelight. You can practically perceive the excitement surrounding these foods in supermarket aisles as individuals extol their digestive health advantages and distinctive tastes. However, let's pause for a moment and value the Amish methodology, which centers on simplicity and heritage. While everyone else is experimenting with their eccentric flavor fusions, the Amish are quietly refining age-old recipes that have endured over time. It's like juxtaposing a timeless novel with the newest popular book. One is rich with profound insight, while the other might simply become obsolete next season. Now, don't misunderstand me. There's something thrilling about contemporary fermentation fads. I mean, who doesn't appreciate a piquant kimchi that invigorates your taste buds? But have you ever paused to examine the price on those elegant jars at the supermarket? Let's just say you might require a modest loan if you intend to accumulate a supply. Meanwhile, the Amish maintain their fermentation practices as uncomplicated and economical, depending on their gardens and the enduring wisdom passed down through generations. In their sphere, it's not about the most fashionable ingredient. It's about conserving what is in season and crafting something delectable that endures. I had an encounter with modern fermentation at a local market on one occasion. I was drawn to a jar of artisanal pickles that advertised a secret chef's blend of spices. The seller elaborated on how these pickles were meticulously prepared with affection and aged to flawlessness. Fascinated, I opted to indulge a bit. When I finally sampled one, I realized I could hardly discern the cucumber. It was like a flavor detonation, but not in a favorable sense. I couldn't help but imagine that the Amish would find my experience amusing. They simply combined some cucumbers, salt, and perhaps a few spices in a crock, and behold, deliciousness without the drama. The allure of the Amish method resides in its genuineness. Fermentation isn't merely a passing fad for them, it's an integral part of their lifestyle. They concentrate on what they possess, utilizing their homegrown produce to create flavorful, nutrient-dense foods that sustain them through the severe winter months. They aren't seeking to impress anyone with elaborate labels or high-end presentations. They simply wish to savor what nature offers. As we observe the ascent of fermentation in contemporary gastronomy, it's crucial to recall that while trends may fluctuate, the the tenets of traditional techniques remained steadfast. The Amish demonstrate that fermentation can be both a scientific endeavor and an artistic pursuit, without the necessity for embellishments or complexities. It serves as a reminder that sometimes the finest things in life are straightforward and deeply connected to our heritage. If you've ever considered delving into the realm of fermentation, the present moment is ideal. Embracing this ancient technique not only forges a meaningful connection with our food, but also introduces an exciting dimension to our meals. The Amish have perfected the craft of fermenting vegetables, and you can achieve this too. Envision yourself in the kitchen surrounded by fresh vegetables and a touch of salt, prepared to craft something extraordinary. The most rewarding aspect is that you don't need to be a culinary virtuoso to begin, just a readiness to experiment and perhaps a measure of patience because, let's be honest, excellent results require time. Consider how fulfilling it would be to open a jar of your own homemade sauerkraut in the depths of winter, knowing you crafted that zesty delight from the ground up. It's like hosting a garden celebration in a jar, minus the sunburn. And while your fermentation journey might encounter some minor setbacks, like that one instance I confused a carrot for a cucumber and ended up with an unusually flavored concoction, you'll be acquiring knowledge and sharing laughter throughout the process. Fermentation is fundamentally about experimentation, and if you happen to miscalculate a recipe, regard it as a palatable lesson learned. And let's not overlook the health advantages. Fermented foods are recognized for their probiotics, which are the beneficial bacteria that maintain our digestive well-being. Research indicates that these diminutive champions can aid in digestion and fortify our immune systems. So each time you savor a bite of your homemade pickles or sauerkraut, you're not merely relishing a tasty indulgence, you're also nourishing your body with goodness. It's like bestowing an internal embrace upon yourself. So gather those vegetables, don your preferred apron, and prepare to convert your kitchen into a fermentation sanctuary. Whether you're getting ready for winter or merely aiming to inject a bit of thrill into your meals, the art of fermentation is beckoning. You might just discover that the amusement, camaraderie, and heritage that accompany it are the finest components of all. Let's commence fermenting.